control. Gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She comes me with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, welcome to the Paranormal Portal Night Terrors. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and you're now stuck with me. That's it. I'm here and I'm taking over. No, I hope you guys are doing good, having a good day. It was kind of a pissy day here at first, but it straightened up and it got kind of nice out. Yeah, it's still kind of sunny. The sun's fading now. But anyway, it was kind of nice in the last part of it. I got out and enjoyed it a little bit. But hope you are enjoying your day, whatever it consists of. Thank you for joining us here on the Night Terrors. I'm absolutely thrilled that you're here with us. Hope you're remaining sane and in your isolations or whatever circumstances you may have there. But hopefully this all ends soon. I think we're heading towards more normal anyway. But regardless, we're here every night. Hi, Farm. How you doing? And hello to all of you guys in the chat. Great to see you guys. Thank you so much for being here. It's my absolute pleasure to be here with you. So it's like we're all quarantined together, and that's just a beautiful thing, like group hug, you know? Bring it in. But we got a full almost hour of show ahead of us here. Hopefully you'll be entertained with that, and I will do a good job presenting that to you. That's always my objective, and usually I think it works out pretty well for the most part. But if you have things that you'd like to share as well or take part in the conversation, please feel free. The phones are open and available if you want to call in and be a part of tonight's show. I'd love to hear from you. It's 720-923-0500. Again, 720-923-0500 is the number for fun right here on the Paranormal Portal. So if you've got something to share or some ideas you'd like to put on the table, or if you just want to bring up something that to talk about in terms of the paranormal, love to hear from you. So that's your opportunity to become immortalized in the archives of the Paranormal Portal. I guess, so you got that going for you if you do choose to call in. But anyway, I guess that's all I got on the front end here. I hope you guys are ready, because it's time for bed. And not only can you call in, but if you have something that you want to share and you don't feel like calling in, that kind of freaks you out or you're nervous, you can always email it to me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. Again, paranormalportalradio@gmail.com is the email address if you've got something you want to submit, or if you got a bunch of stories and would like to be a guest on our podcast, then email me as well. I'd love to hear from you and, get in touch with me through the email, and we'll dial that in and make it happen. So, let's see. I guess that's it. All right, everybody. Good night. No, I'm just kidding. I've got a full bunch of stories to go through with you guys here tonight. So, I guess we could start on that, but I'm just looking at everybody coming in. It's just, it just warms my heart. It just warms my heart every day. I'll never get used to this, to turning on the show and seeing people coming in. And I think one of my favorite parts is the chat room that you guys have created. And I say you guys have created because honestly, I've had very, very little to do with that other than, giving, putting on a show that you guys have happened to come and enjoy. But you guys have created this amazing community in there, and it's just really cool every night to see all you guys come back together and, hey, everybody, and it's almost like an internet version of Cheers, and it's really freaking cool. I guess that would make me Norm. So anyway, but let's get going here tonight and see what we can dig up on the Paranormal Portal. The first story tonight is coming from North Carolina, and it has to do with family friends visits, and it's a medium-length story, so not too bad. But let's see what's going on with family friends visits in the Paranormal Portal in North Carolina anyway. So we had a busy holiday this year. Well, I did. But it did not come without incidents. It started with my old Jack in the Box, and it's circa 1978 kind of old, even though I wasn't born until 1981, but in good condition. And it used to be a toy that my mom kept at my grandparents' house to play with whenever we'd visit, so she wouldn't have to drag toys around with us everywhere. Well, I have it now that my pap now that my pap passed away. It's PAP space PAP, folks. I can't make this stuff up. Passed away, and my grandmother lives with my aunt. The first incident in a series of incidents that my mother, aunt, cousin, and I believe to be pap started around the week before Christmas and involved the Jack in the Box. Coincidentally, Pap's name is Jack. I had the toy sitting on my dresser and a wooden box of miniature rubber bands on top of it, and this wooden box is small, but not really very light. That night I heard shuffling on my dresser and ignored it and went to sleep, and when I woke up, I was startled to see the Jack in the Box out of the box. Its clown face smiled blankly at me, giving me a good spook. And the first thing that came to my mind was Pap and what a prankster he was. What really made me think it was him was when I found the box of rubber bands sitting next to me on the nightstand. Not only that, how did it come out of the box without music or waking me? Granted, if it popped on its own, I could probably sleep through that, but the box of rubber bands, I really think it was him. The next incident was when I was putting up my Christmas tree. The set of lights I used started blinking. The strand of lights were in perfect working order and did not have the blinker lights in place to make them blink. But for some reason, they just started blinking. Then it got to my aunt's house, and she said Pap popped in for a visit, and we asked what had happened. She told us that her lights did the same thing. They just started to blink for no apparent reason. And Grandma says that the blinking lights were Pap's favorite. So we really think he was popping in to visit and wish us a Merry Christmas. The spookiest holiday haunt happened whilst driving the 3.5 hours back from my aunt's house on the night before Christmas Eve. And we got a call from my dad on his cell phone asking if we had heard from my brother, Eric, because he hadn't seen or heard from him all day. And it was around 10 p.m. by this point. Also, my dad has the tendency to forget when we would tell him where we were going, but we had not heard from Eric, and knowing Eric is a pretty responsible kid, especially when it comes to letting people know where he is. We all began freaking out a little and repeatedly calling Eric's cell phone, but no answer. Mom calls Eric's friend David, and he hadn't heard from him, and we call my brother-in-law AJ, and he had no idea and was just leaving for work. So I tell Mom to blow up Eric's phone with phone calls so we know it's urgent. On about the 5th call, this robotic voice answers. "Hello?" Mom asks. "Eric?" Because the voice sounded so weird, and she says the voice said, "He isn't answering, a-hole." And the line went dead. Ooh, that's creepy. My mom and I talk about it for about 20 minutes about how weird it is, and maybe Eric is in real trouble somewhere and someone stole his phone. And we're just at the peak of our awful thoughts of what terrible things might have happened. And Eric called from his girlfriend's phone, and he went to the movie, and Dad forgot, but he was fine. And get this, he left his phone on his bed at home. Nobody was there to answer his phone. Ooh, that's creepy. I see we got a phone call. We'll get to that in just a minute. There's always been a somewhat sinister feeling in that room, in the house. Nothing harmful, just like maybe a grumpy person. Maybe the ghost got tired of the constant ringing. And there were a few more encounters during the holiday season, but those tales will come at another time. It is late. Happy hauntings to you all. Wow, that's freaky. That's really freaky. I gotta say, I love that story. I love the whole idea that the phone rang, and then so, somebody answered it and said, "He's not answering right now, a hole." Oh man, that is a crabby ghost. I don't know, but I don't know how you could hear that and not chuckle. That is just freaking hilarious. Maybe it was really crabby, and maybe it was just a sense of humor kind of thing. But either way, I think that's a cool story. Let's get to the phone call and see what's going on. This is area code 602. You're on the air with me. Hello? Hello? And you're not on the air with me. Hung up. Whoever it was hung up on me. Uh-oh. Well, I hope you call back. It'd be great hearing from you if you would like to. Whatever you had to say. I'm sorry that we lost the connection. But I don't know if you hung up or if the connection just dropped. But call back. I'll keep watching. But no, that's a cool story. I love those stories where spirits interact with objects. I think that those are incredibly profound. And, you know, the spirit phone call thing, I think, to me is about one of my favorite haunting categories. People that experience that thing where they get the spirit phone calls. And honest to God, ladies and gentlemen, I think I got one from my dad from my mom's phone, though, not from his phone. Oh, there's the line again. It's up. Somebody's called back, so let's see who it is. Area code 602, rather. Sorry, I said 620 before. You're on the air.
Hi, my name's Becky, and I was just wondering, what do you guys think about the Phoenix Lights?
Oh, I think the Phoenix Lights are an amazing event. I think that something incredibly profound happened there, and I think that there was a pretty weak attempt to cover it up by explanation of military flares. And I think what the people in Phoenix saw was very real and very incredible.
Yeah, I live in Arizona, and I hear about them all the time, but I wish I was able to see it.
Yeah, they sound like they were absolutely huge. Like people were looking up, standing out in their driveways, looking up and seeing these lights. And these lights were like and seeing the stars black out, you know, from whenever it passed over. But these circle lights that were spaced out on this triangular or boomerang shaped craft. But the craft was like allegedly like a mile or so big. And that's enormous. That's incredible. And silent. And what an amazing event. Just incredible.
Yeah, it is. All right. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Have a great night, and thanks for calling.
You too.
Okay, good night. That's awesome. Yeah, I think the Phoenix Lights are incredible. What an incredible event. I think that, again, there was such a terrible attempt at cover up and just obfuscation, because I think what happened was these reports were coming in, and they were coming in over a period of time. And finally, the military scrambled some warthogs to go up and just dump some flares so they could put something in the sky and say, no, that was us. We were actually doing it. Even though preliminary phone calls allegedly turned up no military traffic reported at that time at all. And then they tried to scramble up some traffic just so they'd have plausible deniability, and it was just really terrible. And what the hell's his name? The governor of Arizona. I'm trying to remember his name. It's a unique name, like Shemp or something. Jeez, I can't remember it. It's just gone from my head. It's a name. I'm always have troubles with names. But he tried to kind of, and I think he caught so much heat for it. He did the press conference and said, "Yeah, we've found the guilty suspects, and officers who want to bring them in." And it had this chief of staff dressed up in like a big alien gray, and he popped off the head of it, and they had this big laugh. And I think it infuriated so many people because it made a joke out of it, and it made it ridiculous and stupid. And I think a lot of people were deeply and rightfully so offended by that, because people were worried. People were sincerely worried and scared about what that was. What does that mean? I mean, you've got something flying in the sky, filling up the entire sky. So it's bigger than anything we have that could, it's like three aircraft carriers lined up flying above you without a sound. It's just these enormous craft. And then to play it off like a punchline, like a joke. And then he says something like, we're just taking ourselves too seriously. Everybody needs to relax. That's not what people needed to hear. But then to find out later that very governor had witnessed it himself, but decided not to acknowledge that. And I think it's probably, at least when I've seen him interviewed, he claims that it was he's very disappointed in himself for not taking it seriously right off the bat. But I think it's one of those things where he was very disappointed after he realized how much backlash he got for being a dick, because that was really a horrible move to do that. But all of the explanations that tried to debunk it were absolutely garbage. And whatever happened down in Phoenix was very real and incredibly profound. And it wasn't just there. It wasn't just the Phoenix Lights. That craft was reported going over a great distance. I think all the way up, maybe into Colorado or whatever, Nevada. I think up into Nevada as well. It was witnessed, that huge craft. And so it was not a small event. It was pretty huge, but whatever it was just, happened and then seemed to take off again. Now, I think there were other reports of a huge boomerang shaped craft, not only in that region of the U.S. at the time. I think that perhaps it was seen in many different regions, but I think the Phoenix Lights was definitely the most witnessed, the most widely witnessed version of that, and so it got the most press. But as I recall, that craft, or potentially other craft like it, were seen in other parts of the U.S. at the same time or in the same time frame. So whatever they were doing, they were covering a lot of ground doing it. But very interesting, and I believe it's definitely a very real thing that happened and was very poorly made attempt to cover it up. So, but yeah, very cool. But thank you for that call. That's very cool. I like when people bring up other ideas and thoughts, because these shows, these night terrors don't have to be about anything specifically. I mean, I pull up ghostly encounter stories, but I'm happy to talk about anything. So there's not a theme that has to happen for these shows. In fact, I guess I gave up a long time ago trying to really plan out the Paranormal Portal, because no matter what I would do, the show always takes on a life of its own. The direction of the conversations always just go the direction they're going to go, and that's fine. I don't have, this arrogant need to control it. It's whatever people want to talk about, I'm happy to talk about, as long as it's paranormal. So anyway, that's the first story, was that one. I love that story. A very cool story, very neat experiences. I think it probably was the grandfather showing up. Pap. That name cracks me up. There's so many weird names out there for people. I think it's adorable, really. I really do, but it's just kind of hard to say. Pap. I don't know. Pap. You end up with P-A-P-A-P instead of P-A-P-P-A-P. But anyway, enough of that. Let's go to the next one. And this one's coming out of Vermont. And what's going on in Vermont? This is Haunted Places. It says, when my husband and I bought our house in 1999, we really didn't believe in ghosts at all. Well, it didn't take long for us to change our minds. The first thing that happened was the ceiling fan was on without actually being turned on. Then my husband heard someone talking to our youngest son while he was sleeping. Our dog was growling at something there, and we have had footsteps, we've seen shadows, lights turn on and off, cupboards that open and shut, and the TV change channels by itself. Our oldest son saw two guys sitting on the floor in his bedroom watching TV. He left the room and went back upstairs after they disappeared. And I've seen a man in black shadows in my bedroom. I think the weirdest thing that has happened was on the one morning when I returned home from working the night shift, and I came home and went to my bedroom to go to sleep. It was a Saturday morning, and I heard what sounded like my husband coming home. I heard the living room door open and someone walking up the stairs. I heard the bathroom door open and the shower turn on. Well, my bedroom is right next to the bathroom, so I got up to see my husband, and I opened the bathroom door, and immediately the shower stopped. And when I looked, there was no one in there, and the shower wall was wet. It really freaked me out. We've had to tell our ghost at times to knock it off when it's been overly noisy, and it does immediately stop. As the years have gone by, it's gotten better. I guess it has got used to us. The last things we have seen is a black shadow which walks down the stairs, walks behind the couch, and then just goes back. We're still here. We still hear walking on the porch, and sometimes we hear knocking on the doors. And it still unnerves me. I believe it's the previous owner and his son that haunt this house. After talking to neighbors, they said the ex-owner used to talk of seeing his son, and that is why he didn't sell the house. As long as he doesn't hurt anyone, we can coexist. And that's really cool. I think that's really powerful and cool. Again, it's hard to know why sometimes spirits choose to stick around. It's hard to know what are they doing, why are they doing it, but again, I have plenty of ideas, plenty of theories, some of which is fear based on religious dogma. Nobody wants to take the risk that they weren't as good a person as they wanted to be, and suffering an eternity in a lake of fire or hell or whatever you want to call it. So maybe it's better to stay in the closet instead of going to eternal suffering. But I don't know. Sometimes they maybe just are attached to it. Maybe that's a happy place for them, and they're just not ready to leave it yet. So maybe they just stick around. It doesn't always have to be some traumatic reason why they stay. It doesn't have to be always the unfinished business. I think a lot of times it is. I think there's people that, for some reason or another, whether due to a tragic accident or some malicious activity, they lost their life early, and maybe they feel really cheated by that. And I can't blame them. That's got to be tough. But maybe that's one reason that they're just not ready to continue. And I think coexisting is important if you're okay with it. I don't know. The most often, the ghostly stuff really doesn't bother me as long as it's not creepy, like horrible stuff, like throwing stuff at you or growling or malicious kind of things. If they're just there and making their presence known once in a while, I think for me that's fine. But I think it's up to the individual to find what are you comfortable with, what are you willing to tolerate. And if things are popping off in your house, or if you're dealing with a potential haunting, do just what this person was talking about. Talk to them. Acknowledge that they're there. Tell them, what you're okay with and what you're not okay with. Like, if you got children, don't ever scare the kids. Don't freak my kids out. Don't slam doors. Don't, whatever. Don't leave a light on. I don't want to pay the bill, or whatever. It's up to you to to discuss your comfort zone. But, if a lot of times people do say that after they've had those contacts and made that dialogue, that things generally do settle down. And if they don't, then you've got a bigger problem on your hand. You've got something. If something doesn't settle down at that point, you're dealing with something that could be very terrible or dangerous or whatever. Because if it's not willing to respect your wishes, then you've got bigger problems than whether or not there's a ghost there. You've got bigger problems to deal with, and you need to get help and get it the hell out of your house. So just my 2 cents, but if the dialogue doesn't work, definitely take it seriously and, escalate that as you need to, because there are creepy things out there, ladies and gentlemen. I don't necessarily understand it, but I don't doubt that they're there and that people have really had to fight for their lives in some cases. So it's very, very rare, but it does happen. All right, so let's go to the next one. And this one it's my birthday's tomorrow, Taco. Thank you, brother. Yeah, the 1st. Well, it depends on where you are in the world. Right now it is my birthday in some parts of the world, but not the part I live in. So my birthday is May 1st, which is tomorrow. And I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to do a show tomorrow. I've been thinking about that. I probably will, just because I love doing the shows, but we'll see. I may just take the night off. If I do, it's no offense. It's not because I didn't want to be here with you, but I don't know. Sometimes it's nice to think about just kicking up my feet and staring at a TV for a night, just to kind of remember what that feels like. But anyway, I don't know. I'm not going to commit to it, but I might be here, but I might not. So if I'm not, just know that I'm having the happiest birthday I know how to have. All right, so let's get to the next one. And this is North Carolina and a haunted life. It says, I haven't posted on here for a while because things had somewhat died down. Of course, that quiet time must have just been the eye of the storm. Happenings at my home have picked up tremendously, and it is starting to concern me a lot. Not because I fear for my well-being per se, but more for the fear of my 2.5-year-olds. Yeah. 2.5-year-olds. Okay. I didn't know I didn't know how to read that for a second there, but yeah, it's 2.5-year-olds. Must have twins. You can read back to my other stories I posted and see a trend of whatever's happened getting progressively more intense. My thoughts on a lot of prior activity were based on my lifestyle. I get stressed easily and am bipolar, and it's easy for me to mask my feelings with drinking and etc. to cope. Unfortunately, when being in that state, you let your guard down and you don't always act the way a loving father and husband should. And I'm not physically abusive, but anyway, I felt that whatever might be happening was a result of a ghost or demon feeding off my negative vibes. Oh, thanks, Aussie. Yeah, it's my birthday there. A few months ago, I joined a gym, quit smoking, drinking, and have been working real hard to keep a positive view on life. And this had been working. I thought until here recently there were some examples of what has been going on. My wife and I are losing things all the time. We always put our cell phones and the keys in one spot, out of reach from the kids, of course, and well, they keep disappearing on us and turning up in the most random places. Just last week, I came home from work, put my cell phone in the basket on top of the entertainment center, and made dinner. After I fed the kids, I went to call my mom and noticed my phone was not there where I had left it. I was searching high and low and just couldn't find it. Because my wife was at work, I got online and text messaged myself. Ring, ring. It was going off somewhere in my bedroom with me. Well, I ended up finding it on top of my dresser, or in my dresser drawer, in the back pocket of a pair of jeans. Oh my God, that's profound. Weird. A while back, I couldn't find my keys, and this went on for a week. I chalked them up to being lost, and we bought a new bed frame for our king bed, and when I removed the mattress off of the box spring, guess what was laying right there in the middle of the two? Yep, my keys. Most recently, the other night, I had just put my 13-month-old down and was walking down the hall with my 2-year-old when I was about to go into the kitchen with him to get some juice, when all of a sudden he froze and refused to go in, pointing to the far side of the kitchen saying, "No, I can't go in there. He scares me." Well, this really angered me, so I calmly said aloud, "Yeah, I don't appreciate you frightening my little boy. This is January 23rd, year 2009. You need to move on with the help of God and leave my family alone." That was that. The next night, I was rocking my 13-month-old before bed when I saw a white light stream from my bedroom, which I was looking straight into, and down the hall, and I recall going, "Wow," inside my head because it was so blunt and in your face. Well, after lying him down, I let my 2-year-old finish watching his show, and I put him down. I always lay him down, read a book, and then go get him some water before saying "I love yous." And while in the kitchen getting his water, plain as day, a figure walked by the kitchen doorway. I first saw it out of my peripheral, and then I turned quickly and saw it dead on just before it had gone totally out of sight. I tried to rationalize thinking it was my 2-year-old because just getting out of bed, so I checked, and nope. It gave me the chills, and for the first time in this house, I got a total sense of dread and uneasiness. I even called my mom and had to talk to her. The only way I can describe this feeling is the same as the feeling I had in my house when I still lived at home, the one where the woman had committed suicide before we moved in. Just last night, My wife was finally off work for a night, and we were on the couch watching Biggest Loser when we heard a loud moan or groan from the back rooms. The kids were asleep, so we kept watching TV, and the sound caught my attention and set a red flag off. My wife is still not as accepting of these encounters, so I kept it to myself, and after about 10 minutes, my 2-year-old started screaming bloody murder and yelling, "No, no, 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 no." We ran back to him, and he was lying down with his arms outstretched in front of him, shaking uncontrollably. He kept saying something about that man, and he wouldn't stop shaking. Basically, I would love to think that he was experiencing night terrors. Sorry. That with time goes away. I hate to think he is being tormented by an entity. Do you think my talking to it and telling it to leave could have increased the activity? Please, any thoughts would be so appreciated. Well, yeah, I mean, if it does increase the activity, if you're noticing more activity after you have that dialogue, then there again, that's exactly what I was just talking about. And I pull these stories at random, so really that wasn't planned at all. But, if something is not respecting your wishes, then that means you're dealing with something that doesn't really care about you or your situation. It's acting on its own in its own self-interest, or it's just residual. And it's not necessarily intelligent at all. But what these people are experiencing is very intelligent. It's interacting directly with them, hiding their objects. It's, messing with the kids. It's making sure it's seen. Those are very intelligent experiences that something is doing on purpose. So at that point, I think and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not a human entity. It can still be a human entity. But if it's not respecting you, it's got to go. It's got to go. There's no place in our lives for that. And nobody should put up with that, especially with children. You can't expose your kids to that. That's not fair to them. And things like that need to get purged out of their experience. So binding and with prayer and purging is important. Call on the angels. Say, come get it. Come get it. You got one loose. You've got a straggler. And again, it's, if it's possible to live peacefully with these things, I'm all for it. I think that's a cool thing. And I think it's an awesome opportunity to perhaps understand more about the experience or the situation or the phenomena. But I think if it makes you feel horrible and you're worried about your family, then, all bets are off. You got to do what you got to do. So it's kind of like a bug infestation. It's like, it's great to not to hurt the bugs if you don't have to let them outside and be nice. But if you got a hornet's nest in your kid's room, you're going to get rid of it. You're not going to, get a cup and a napkin and one by one try to release them to the wild. You get them out. You get the the bug spray and get busy. So anything that risks your children, you definitely have to go right to level 10. There's no screwing around. So that's my opinion anyway. And, again, I in some cases, these things may not be trying to be malicious at all. It's perceived that way. And of course, little kids don't understand. They don't really understand, a lot of things. But I think if something is terrifying them and it's continuing to terrify them when they're crying, it's no longer just a, oops, the kid saw me and got scared. If it's continuing to torment your child, even though the child is afraid, then you can be pretty sure it's not meaning to be nice. At least that's my opinion. So come to your own conclusions. But yeah, that's terrible. That really breaks my heart that a little child is terrified. All right, this one is coming from Ohio. Oh, God, there's lots going on in Ohio all the time. This one has to do with apparitions, voices, and touches. Let's see. It says, the first thing I ever remembered happening to me was when I was 6 years old. My parents went out to eat, and my granny was babysitting us. And our bathroom was across the hall from my bedroom, and I went to the bathroom while everyone else was in the family room. And when I came out of the bathroom, I saw a lady, all white, waving her finger at me to come over to her. I stopped dead in my tracks, and after a few minutes, I ran to get my granny. But when we came out to the room, she was gone. The next time my parents had gotten divorced, and my dad lived in a little 2-bedroom apartment in downtown Lebanon. Since we didn't have enough beds, I had to sleep on the couch in the family room. And once again, I went to the bathroom, and when I came out of the bathroom, there was another woman, all white, but she was different than the first lady. This one had clothes that were from the early 1900s, and I ran back to the couch and fell asleep. And the next day, I told my dad I saw something, and he described to the T what I had seen. He had seen the same lady before. These two ghosts never bothered me, and they seemed friendlier than anything. After my dad moved into a 3-bedroom condo on the other side of Lebanon, but I moved in with my mom, and it was my senior year of high school, and my granny had died. Well, I was devastated. I became depressed and cut myself off from all my friends, and after graduation, I moved up to Kent State University just to get away from all the hurt. When my granny died, my dad moved into her old house to take care of my pappy, and my sister and her husband moved into our condo. When I moved back home, my sister was going through a separation, so I moved into the condo with my sister, and she told me that she felt weird things happening. She's a very spiritual person and has had many experiences of her own. I was big into drinking at the time, so I was always passed out when these things would happen to her. And things got better with her and her husband, so they moved into an apartment in Centerville. My dad moved back into the condo, and I stopped drinking, and now I've been experiencing different things. Not only have I had things happen to me, but my dad's siblings and even my boyfriend have too. Most of the time I hear footsteps coming up the steps, and what sounds like children running up and down the hallway. My dad was heard giggling when none of the kids have been home, and someone calling out his name in the middle of the night. When my boyfriend stays over, he has trouble sleeping because my room has a weird feeling to it, and I usually can't get to sleep until between the hours of 3 to 5, which is dead time when the most spiritual activity happens. I am afraid of my room. I keep all the lights on upstairs all night, and the hall light outside my room flickers on and off. And we've had wires checked and everything, and I just feel like something is always watching me sleep. It's just a creepy feeling, but the scariest thing happened just last night. I was alone in my room, and my dad had just gone to bed at 9 that night. I had no idea what time it was, and all I know is I woke up, and I couldn't move. I felt like something was keeping me from talking. Well, I started crying because I was trying to call out for Jesus, and I couldn't. After a few minutes, I finally called his name out 3 times. When I was younger, my sister used to always tell me if I was scared to say, "All the demons in this room get out in the name of Jesus Christ." So that's what I yelled. After I called out for Jesus, 2 demons crawled out from under my bed and left the room. But the last one looked back at me right before he left the room, and I was frozen. After they left, I could move again, but my heart was racing. A side note, I've even experienced some things while staying at my boyfriend's house, ranging from just eerie feelings to the channels on the TV changing, to the printer turning on by itself. But the scariest thing that happened to me there was when my boyfriend and I were sleeping at around 3 in the morning, he started a conversation asking me my name, where I worked, what I was doing. Well, I couldn't answer any of these questions, apparently. I just stared at him, smiling, saying, "I don't know the answers to every question." And when I woke up, I asked him what he was talking about. I was extremely hot, but he was freezing. He said that I wasn't acting like myself and didn't answer any of his questions, and my mannerisms weren't the same as mine. Ever since then, I don't sleep in that room. I don't know what to do about this or why it's happening. Any thoughts are welcome. Now that's interesting. That's 2 stories where people are talking about being really, really drinking heavily. And I don't know that it's necessarily, like a possession kind of thing, but I've always been warned about alcohol, and I don't mean social drinking, but I mean getting drunk. Apparently, what has been explained to me that happens is that you actually get holes in your aura. And I don't know, take that or leave it. I'm just putting it out there. But most people say that if you want to avoid negative spirits, stay away from hospitals and bars. And then of course, the bars are, people are getting smashed, they're getting wasted. And there's these perhaps formerly human entities that hang out there. And they may be the ones that their life was cut short or they felt like they weren't done yet. And so they hang out on those places to try to get into somebody else. And I don't know if it's the same as an actual possession, but it's like they definitely form attachments at those places. And it can be real problematic. So take it or leave it. I don't know. It's up to you what you believe and what you don't believe. Again, it's never been the scope of the show to tell you what to believe, but I always try to respect that. And, I've never really been a huge drinker. I mean, I've drank, plenty of times in my life, but I've never been a habitual drinker. I've certainly been drunk before and done all kinds of stupid crap when I wasn't quite myself. But, yeah, I generally don't like being out of control. And I've always felt like, when I drank too much alcohol, I wasn't in control. And that always bothers me. So, just take it or leave it. Just some words of advice. It could be nothing, but maybe there's something to it. But at the hospitals, of course, being, people are coming in the worst possible shape a person can be in, of course. And that's obviously there's issues with people getting taken over, having walk-ins. Some people like to use the term walk-in. If you hear the term walk-in, it's kind of like a possession, but not necessarily a non-human entity. Like a possession is something else taking you over, but a walk-in is like someone else coming in. And the idea is that they may try to get you out so they can just take over. So, again, I'm no expert, but I've heard a story, and this is from my cousin. And she was telling me a story of her friend who was, and I can't remember for sure, but I think he was in a terrible accident of some kind and was rushed to the hospital, just barely hanging on to life. And he ended up going into a coma. And he got better. But then she said, but suddenly she started having dreams of him coming to her and saying that, he was sorry and he had to say goodbye and it was, his time to go and that, whatever, giving her messages in her sleep. And she said the weird thing is that he's alive. He's still alive. And I said, are you sure he's the one that came back? And she said, and her eyes just got big and she looked around. She's like, oh my God, because apparently when he got better and was released from the hospital, he cut off all contact with all of his friends, didn't talk to anybody, and just he just totally changed as a person, was definitely not the same person, moved away and cut off all contact, even with the best friends that he had. And that's a very peculiar thing. So could that have been a walk-in situation? Somebody else took over. And I personally think so. But again, you got to come to your own conclusions and deal with your own paradigms on those. But that's really strange when somebody changes their, if you know people, and I think all of us do, one of the hardest things for any person to do is to change. And even small changes are an absolute trial for us. So when somebody just fundamentally changes on a dime, does that make sense? Does that make sense? Knowing human behavior and human psychology, people don't change. They are creatures of habit. We are creatures of habit. I'm a creature of habit. I'm in my comfort zone as much as I can be, and it takes an act of God to get me out of it. So if suddenly I changed, that should be red flags to everybody. But take it or leave it. Just again, just sharing some insights and wisdoms that were given to me in my journey so far. All right, so the next one is coming from Pennsylvania. And this one is about apparitions, voices, and touches. And I got to get a drink. Oh. I hope you guys are enjoying this journey. I hope you're having a good time so far. Again, I always love doing these shows. I love doing the portal, but let's see what's going on in Pennsylvania. And it says, when I was 15, my family moved into a house in Philadelphia that at the time was approximately 80 or 85 years old. It's still standing, or was at any rate the last time I was in the neighborhood several years ago, and was the site of something which I, to this day, have never been able to explain, or even to myself, but it's stayed with me ever since. We were a typical nuclear family in the late 60s. Dad worked, Mom stayed home. I just finished my sophomore year in high school, and my younger twin brothers had completed first grade. Excuse me. Absolutely nothing extraordinary there. Well, it was summer afternoon, and I was home alone. Dad was at work. My brothers were at the playground, and Mom was receiving a cancer treatment at a local hospital. I was engaged in what passed for amusing myself by sitting at the kitchen table reading a news magazine. We took both Time and Newsweek, but after all these years, I'm hanged if I can remember which one it was. Okay. But now, by the way the house was designed, there was a back door that led to a small wooden porch. We normally kept the porch door shut, but the kitchen door was usually open during the day. As I sat there reading, something, again, don't ask me what, caused me to look at the front or at the back door, and there stood, of all things, a youngish man dressed in a Revolutionary War uniform. I must have stared for a good 20 or 30 seconds before it hit me, like a proverbial ton of bricks, that people don't dress that way, at least not anymore. It was then that the figure just kind of smiled and faded. At no time did I feel frightened, only just curious. I never bothered to tell my parents about it, only my best friend, who was also interested in such things. Well, we were never able to figure it out until the area was developed in the late 1800s. My understanding is that it was all farmland. However, there was a battle relatively close by that was, at the time, a small place called Germantown, and the historian in me is still wondering, and in adulthood, one of my brothers told me that he'd seen the same figure himself on occasion. So that one is, as much as, I always talk about residual being around battlefields and stuff, that was an actual interaction. So it would seem that spirit is still sticking around for whatever reason. But it did look at the person, the person sharing the story, and it did smile. So that's a direct interaction with somebody. And what a profound event. I like that it wasn't a frightening event. I think those kind of events are cool. They're very encouraging. Okay, I got time for a couple more here, depending on the length, but we'll just keep going until I'm just out of steam, I guess. This one's coming from North Carolina. When my first son was born, everything seemed fine. In fact, he appeared to progress normally until he turned about 3, when his development just slowed down to a crawl. No matter what I said to the military pediatricians, first at one duty station, then at another, I was consistently brushed off as just worrying too much over the only child I had. It wasn't until he was nearly ready to begin school that we discovered he's autistic. Nowadays, there would have been intervention much earlier, but this was the early 1980s when autism was only beginning to be recognized as a spectrum disorder. Well, artistic or not, my firstborn was always had a peculiar quirk. He seems to know things in advance. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Chemtrail Mix. Appreciate it. Let me read this and I'll get to your message there. As a preschooler, he would casually tell me when someone was coming to the door before they knocked, and without being able to see them through a window. There was also the time his father, now my ex, was injured on a jump. He was in the airborne, and the phone rang, and he said, "Daddy," as if he were talking to him. Since his father was, as I thought at the time, on a field training exercise, I blew it off until I picked up the phone, and yes, it was my other half calling me to come get him from the hospital. He'd hurt his ankle on a previous night's jump, which was the start of the field problem. I guess the most unusual incident, though, was the day I was sitting on the couch with him, and he reached over and began to pat my abdomen. I asked him why, and he answered, "Baby." "Baby?" I asked, and "Baby," he replied firmly. "Tiny baby in there." Well, he was 5 years old at this time, and I'd been using no form of contraceptive since he was almost 2. So I thought he had great imagination. I stood up, and he threw his arms around me and said, "Hugging tiny baby." It was about 2 months later that I discovered I was indeed about 12 weeks pregnant with the child who would be his younger brother. When discussing this with a friend of mine, she simply shrugged and said it was no surprise to her. JP, she said, is very special. He isn't troubled by logic or by our conceptions of reality. People like him are really between two worlds. That's beautiful. That's really a beautiful thought. A lot of times we think that autism is a handicap, but these children, these people, these autistic people are I mean, they have this an amazing focus and this amazing ability to just see things entirely different than us. And I don't think it's a handicap as well as it's just a transitional focus that we don't quite understand yet. Maybe we will someday, and maybe I'm not qualified to even comment on it, but I think that some of the most amazing people have been on the spectrum, and they've done amazing things, and some of the greatest geniuses have been autistic. So I don't know, and I think that's a great point that they do really have their feet in both worlds. But Chemtrail Mix says, as an elder once told my mom to be careful with alcohol. She said that your spirit leaves you for 4 days after you drink. It leaves you vulnerable. Wow. That's amazing. That really is wild. Huh. I hadn't known that. That's incredible. Very incredible. What is this one? Titan. Oh, thank you. Brent, early happy birthday. Hope you take the day off. If not, well, there will be mayhem in the chat again. Much love, brah. Thank you so much, you guys. You guys are amazing. I really appreciate it. That's so cool. I guess, you guys are too good to me. That's all I can say. I'm very honored, and thank you so much for the wishes. Let's get to the next one. This one is coming from Oklahoma. And it's not too long. This will probably be our last one tonight, though. It says, my story is of a woman named Pearl who haunted one of our old houses. It wasn't until we moved a couple of months later that we learned the woman had died there. We were glad we had an explanation of the hauntings. It started when I was 10 or 11. We moved to a house in Xena, a small area outside of Grove, Oklahoma. The house was deep in a forest, and it was located on a hill and was painted an orangish red, and there was an exact replica house next to it painted blue. Trailers circled around it at the bottom of the hill. The first instance wasn't until a couple of weeks after we had moved in. My sister had a little carousel which was rusted and broken and didn't have the batteries, and one night it just started spinning and playing a song that wasn't even the song it was supposed to play. 2 nights later, when I was trying to sleep on the couch, my dad walked into the kitchen to get a drink. He got a cup and was fixing to turn on the faucet when he heard cups clinking together and knocking over. He opened the cabinet expecting to see a mouse, and instead he saw the cups neatly aligned and nothing was moved. He checked all the cabinets and didn't see a mouse. Strange thing was, even though I saw him go into the kitchen, I didn't hear anything. The kitchen is basically a part of the living room, only a counter separates the two rooms. The haunting seemed to escalate. It says escalade, but it's escalate. Nothing more happened until 3 nights later, when it was 8 o'clock in the morning and I was just beginning to wake up. I heard the sound of a mortar, but I didn't register what it was until later when my dad ran outside with my mom in tow, yelling at my uncle, Jim, who was also living with us, that someone was stealing the truck. I sprang up and sat on the couch while everyone else ran outside, only to come back in 5 minutes later saying that the truck started by itself. No one hot-wired it, and the keys were in my parents' bedroom. It was then that my parents realized something was going on. Oh, thank you, KJ. That's very cool. Very, very cool. Thank you. And my personal experience was when I was in the bathroom and no one was in the house. I heard my mom call my name, but she had already gone to work. So I walked into the hall and I saw no one. I even called my mom's name and there was no answer. So I walked back into the bathroom and once again it calls my name. I ignored it. It called my name again. I still ignored it. Finally, I guess it got so mad it threw one of the bathtub knobs they had broken off earlier and were sitting on the side of the tub at the small window. Well, I was just shocked and ran out. I didn't tell my parents because even I still didn't believe it. Before we moved, whatever it was almost locked me in the dark garage and called out my uncle's name and just plain freaked us out. After we moved, my mom learned the previous renter had only one experience and not as severe as ours. Then the renter told her the owner's wife had died in the abandoned house next to ours, and her name was Pearl. So Pearl was just being a pain. Blessed Pearl, go to bed. All right, let's see who's calling us. There's a phone call here. It's area code 505. You're on the air.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing all right. I just want to say happy birthday to you in case you're not on tomorrow.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate that. I don't know if I'm going to be or not.
Go ahead.
I said, I don't know if I'm going to be or not. I'm kind of tossing and turning on the idea, but I to tell you the truth, I'll probably be here, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, either way, I hope you enjoy your birthday.
Oh, thank you very much. I do too.
It's pretty supposed to happen. We were supposed to get in touch with you about some stuff, and the week got away from me, so I apologize.
Oh, no worries at all. No worries. I understand completely. My week has gotten away from me too, so it always happens.
But anyway, I got a story for you if you want to listen to it.
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to hear it.
All right, now, this is going to sound extremely weird, and if it hadn't happened to me, I would think people were making this up, but I swear to you, this is one of the scariest things that ever happened to me. I work in a home where we work with disabled people.
Okay.
And we got everybody back. We take them out, out in the city and get them out of the house and stuff when we could.
Okay.
And we got everybody back and got, their bellies full and got them relaxed. And we were sitting there, I and my coworkers, just, talking back and forth about different things.
Okay.
We had a birthday party like the weekend before, I believe.
Uh-huh.
And it was up in the office, which is right next to where we were sitting. And it was a helium balloon. Well, the helium balloon was up in the corner of the office. Well, we were sitting there talking, and all of a sudden this helium balloon came down to about 4 feet off the ground and floated from the corner of the office past me, past my coworkers, and into the far bathroom, which is like, I don't know, across the living room.
Uh-huh.
And then it came to where we had towels and it floated back up. So I didn't think nothing about it. I thought, all these odd things happen. And that's not the oddest thing that happened. And about an hour, 2 hours later, it came back to the same path.
Oh, jeez.
Same height.
Oh, no. Wow.
And I was sitting in the recliner again, talking, helping. I was doing something. I forget what I was doing. But,
uh-huh.
And I was just being a smart ass, thinking, oh, man, I got to say something stupid or this is going to freak me out. So I looked at the balloon and said, hey, where do you think you're going? And the balloon stopped, and it floated directly in front of me. And at this time, my coworker's, her eyes are, wide open. I don't know what my expression was at the time. We just looked at each other, and she said, I think we should just ignore it. I said, I think that's a good idea. So after about half an hour of being ignored, it floated back into the office and right back to the same space it was at.
Oh, my God. That's so powerful. I mean, it's one thing if
I hadn't witnessed this, I would think someone's making it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing if it just moves in a and does a path, but when when it repeats the path again, that's not just air currents, and that's not just the normal thing, And then when it acknowledged when you're talking to it, that's trippy. Wow.
It really was.
Wow.
Another thing that happened, if you don't mind me adding to it.
No, please.
There's this radio we had playing because one of our clients needs music relaxes them, right?
Music relaxes
we had
them?
the radio. We're kind of one of the oldie stations from the 70s and 80s, and all of a sudden it turned up by itself.
Oh.
which could be something could have happened where it had a glitch or whatever. And,
Uh-huh.
but then I turned and I looked at it and I said, "Look, that's a little loud. We kind of need to keep it down." And as soon as I said that, it turned back down. And then it was stopped. I was freaking out, but not really, because I had to be calm for my clients.
Yeah.
And inside, I was like, "What the?"
Oh man.
Uh, and then I said, "Hey, these people don't turn the station to something else." I'm looking at my coworker, and I said, "You got a remote? You're messing with me, right?" She says, "No, I swear to God." And she raised her hand. I said, "Get up." And I looked around the chair. I looked around the table where she was at, and there's no remote.
Oh wow.
So then, when I told the people in this house don't appreciate that music because it turns some kind of modern, rapidy, crappy music, it turned right back to the station you had it on, and my coworker got up and unplugged it. Oh, screw this.
Yeah, no kidding.
I think it's scared because she never came back after that.
Well, those are fantastic stories, brother. Thank you so much for sharing them with us. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. I decided I wanted to call, especially once I heard it was your birthday, and say happy birthday, and then whenever you're ready next week, I can get in touch with you on that other stuff.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. Did you email me already?
I didn't.
Okay. Will you email me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com so that I can get in touch with you and we'll get this dialed in.
I certainly will. Thank you, sir.
All right. Have a great night and thank you for the birthday wishes and thank you for the stories. That's awesome.
Have a good night. Bye.
Okay. Good night. Very cool. Those are some great stories. I think that those retirement homes and nursing homes are probably jam packed with confused spirits and stuff. I don't think there's any doubt that there's a lot of people that linger in those situations, and I don't know. Is it because of things like Alzheimer's or what? I don't know. Dementia, does that affect a spirit's ability to move on? I don't know. Or is it something like dementia, just a fragmentation of the spirit, and so some of it goes on to where it's supposed to go, and the other parts maybe don't. I don't know. I'm so curious about things like that because so many people report apparitions of former residents in those places. There's nursing stories all over the place that work in old folks' homes that encounter a lot of hauntings, a lot of strangeness. And we've covered them on the show. And I think those stories are absolutely fascinating. And sometimes they're troubling because, if a person is, in that state when they pass, I hope that they can make that transition, or someone or other, some loved one that's already passed comes and helps them get across, because yeah, that's really tragic. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, good night, Brent. Kick some butts. Good night, Portal family. Yeah, thank you, Ethan. I appreciate it, and thank you for all of the birthday wishes. I've been seeing them come across the screen as we're going here tonight. I really do love you guys. I mean, I know that a lot of hosts say stuff like that, like, "Oh, I love you guys," but I mean, seriously, you guys are like a family to me, and a very important family, and it really means everything to me when you come and take part in the shows, and whether you're just in the chat room hanging out with those chatters in there, or if you're paying attention to the show, or both, it doesn't matter. It just means a lot that you guys are here. Old folks' homes are heartbreaking. Yeah, they are. Chemtrail mix. I got to tell you personally, as a side note, I have a hard time going into them, and it's because I feel so psychically drained when I leave them. It's just like I'm exhausted. After I go to a nursing home or something, it takes all of my energy. I just have nothing left when I leave those places, and all I can do is just go take a nap somewhere. And I don't know if it's my failure to shield myself correctly or what, but they just seem like these places of such low energy, and it's very sad places to me. So That's just, just me, and I don't pretend that's everybody, but I will tell you that when I was going through massage therapy school, we had to go to the nursing homes and practice and do things like that back in the day, and work on a lot of people that really needed it because they were, bedridden people and stuff. But I would leave there and just be exhausted, and my spirit would just be just in the toilet. I just had no life in me hardly at all upon leaving those places. I don't know if that's still the case. I don't go to them generally, not because I don't care. It's just, it's very hard for me. And maybe I just don't, maybe I don't shield myself well enough when I do things like that, but it's hard with, the empathy, feeling all of that as you go through the holes. There's a lot of sadness in those places, and it's very, very heavy. So, but anyway, I guess it's, maybe why more people should go to them, to bring more light to those places and to bring happiness to those people who are, sitting there. And, unfortunately in our Western society, we don't care for our elderly loved ones like a lot of cultures around the world. We just kind of farm them off somewhere so we can just stay busy on our stuff. And it's really a tragedy. And I can't say I'm any better than anyone else. I've had my own family members in those homes as well, and I didn't get enough involved into that, and that's a regret I'll have with me until I die. Just knowing that someone I loved and was very dear to me just kind of sat in those places, just waiting for the final curtain, and I feel like I could have been more instrumental and a part of that. So maybe we have to spend more time visiting those people. I'll tell you that one of my favorite pastimes is actually talking to the elderly generation, because they have stories, they have wisdom, they have knowledge, they have insights, and all of that is being lost. And I think there's so much value in to hear what they have to say, what they've seen in their lives, and they can teach us so much. And I think that we forget those gems of our culture, and they are the elderly. They are the people that have been here the longest and seen the most and probably triumphed more than any of us will ever know, and have lived through things we can't understand. And we could learn a lot, but we tend to just stay focused on our little tunnel. And hopefully we're learning. Hopefully we'll learn from those things. But anyway, enough of me preaching. Sorry guys. I love you guys so much. Be good, be kind, be nice, take care of each other, help each other out, find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. And I might be here tomorrow, I might not, but please understand if I'm not. It's just, I took a me night. So, all right, guys, love you bunches, and sweet dreams.